You didn't just find this video. You remembered it. You probably think you stumbled onto this video. Just a click. Just another scroll. Just something to pass the time on a quiet afternoon. But I want to offer you another possibility. One you may already feel somewhere deep inside. What if this moment isn't random at all? What if you're not here by chance, but by design? Not by my design, and certainly not some external algorithm, but by something quieter, older, wiser. By that deep, still part of you that's been whispering your name long before you ever thought to listen. You see, I don't believe in coincidences when it comes to awakening. I believe in alignment, in resonance, in that mysterious pull that calls us back, not forward to something we already know but forgot how to name. You weren't pulled here to learn something new. You were pulled here to remember what has always been true. That you are not just living inside this world. You are helping shape it. You are not just reacting to life. You are composing it. With your frequency, with your attention, with your permission. I know that might sound like a lot to take in, especially when the world outside feels loud and life feels so solid, so fixed. But the truth is, reality is far more fluid than it appears. And you, yes, you are far more powerful than you've been taught to believe. Maybe you've felt it, even if you couldn't explain it. Those strange moments of synchronicity, when someone calls just as you think of them, when a message finds you at the exact moment your heart was ready to hear it, when life seems to pause, just long enough for you to catch a glimpse of something more. That more isn't somewhere else. It's not hiding in some sacred mountain or secret teaching. It's already moving through you, like breath, like rhythm, like the stillness behind your thoughts. And right now, in this exact moment, you are remembering that. That's why you're here. Not by accident, but by readiness. Not because something out there chose you, but because something in you has been preparing for this. There is a part of you that never forgot who you truly are. A part untouched by the noise of the world or the conditioning of time. It remembers that you are not broken. You are not late. You are not behind. You are a living thread in the vast fabric of consciousness. And your remembering helps the whole. So no, this video isn't just another video. This isn't about learning new concepts or collecting spiritual jargon. It's not about achieving a higher state or fixing what's wrong. It's about remembering and allowing, like a river remembering how to flow, like a bird remembering how to fly, like your heart remembering what it feels like to be still and to know. You don't need to force anything. You don't need to strive. You don't even need to understand it all right now. Just soften. Just let yourself be met by this moment, by this message, by the version of you that already knows how to walk through the next chapter without fear, without doubt, without apology. So before we go any further, I invite you to breathe. Not to do anything, just breathe. And notice what begins to rise in the silence. Not your thoughts, but the awareness behind them. That's the part of you that chose this moment. The part that has always been listening. The part that knew long before you clicked that this isn't the beginning of something new. It's the continuation of something sacred. Welcome back. 1. You didn't come here to wait, you came to awaken. There's this quiet illusion that creeps into our lives without us noticing. It whispers to us through the ticking clock, the unanswered questions, the delays and distractions of the day. It says, not yet, not until you're ready, not until things are clearer, calmer, safer. And so we wait. We wait for the right opportunity, for the perfect conditions, for someone to validate us, for the moment that feels like a green light. But the truth is, the moment never feels perfect, because it was never supposed to. You see, the portal doesn't open when life looks just the way you planned. It opens when something inside you, tired of the waiting, the holding back, the shrinking, finally says, Now, not because you have everything figured out, not because all your fears are gone, but because the longing in you has grown louder than the doubt. And I know what that longing feels like. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It's soft, but persistent. It shows up in the silence after disappointment, in the ache you feel when you know you're meant for more, but can't quite touch it yet. I used to think awakening was something that happened during a retreat, or after years of meditation, or through some grand cosmic download. But then life showed me something else. It showed me that awakening happens in the most ordinary of moments. Not in the mountaintop experience, but in the pause between two breaths. When you finally stop running from your own truth. It happens when you stop outsourcing your permission to be alive. It happens when you stop saying, "I'll be brave when." "I'll start creating when." "I'll show up fully when." And instead, you ask, what would happen if I stopped waiting? What if you stopped waiting for the world to change before you let yourself rise? What if you stopped waiting for others to understand before you started speaking from your soul? What if the version of you you're trying to become is already here, already breathing, already ready? You don't awaken by force. You awaken by allowing the truth to surface, allowing the fear to be seen, allowing the beauty in you to come out of hiding, even if it trembles. It's like watching a flower open. It doesn't rush. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't look around to see if it's the right season. It opens because it is time, and sometimes the world won't mirror that back to you. Sometimes the people closest to you won't understand. Sometimes the timing will look off, the path unclear. But none of that matters if something inside you has already started to stretch toward the light. You're not here to wait your way into awakening. You're here to remember that you are the light you were waiting for. And if your voice shakes when you speak, speak anyway. If your hands tremble when you create, create anyway. If your heart aches when you choose differently, choose anyway. Because that trembling, that ache, that shift in breath, when you act from truth instead of habit, that's the very moment the portal opens. Not outside you, but within. That's the moment life starts responding differently. Because you're no longer broadcasting the energy of someone in hiding. You're broadcasting the frequency of someone home in themselves. And when that shift happens, you don't just awaken for you. You awaken for all the silent souls still waiting. You become a signal, a lighthouse, not by force, but by presence. So, if you're listening to this now, and there's even a flicker of recognition in your chest, if something in you is saying, "Yes, that's me. I've been waiting, and I'm tired of waiting," then this is your moment. Not to rush, not to push, but to allow, to soften into what's been calling you all along, to let the old timeline dissolve the one where you had to wait, prove, earn, deserve, and to step fully into the one where you simply remember. Because that version of you that's already awake, already embodied, already living with clarity and courage, they're not somewhere in the future. They're just on the other side of your next choice. The choice to stop waiting and start becoming. 2. The frequency you emit, not the wishes you think, is what the universe responds to. Sometimes we speak as if the universe were a person, a listener, a witness sitting somewhere out there, taking notes on our affirmations, nodding in approval when we recite the right words. But the truth is, the universe doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you are. You can stand in front of the mirror and say, "I am safe." But if your breath is shallow, your shoulders are tight, and your chest still carries the weight of past betrayals, the field hears that. You can repeat, "I am abundant," 20 times a day. But if your stomach clenches every time a bill arrives, or your nervous system tenses when you think about your future, the field feels that. Because the quantum field doesn't understand English, it speaks in vibration, in coherence, in the silent broadcast of your inner state moment to moment. And I don't say this to discourage you. I say it to liberate you. You don't need perfect words. You don't need flawless mantras or spiritual vocabulary. You just need to become honest about what's really living inside you. Because the universe is not responding to your mask. It's responding to your signal. And your signal is not what you wish you were. It's what you consistently embody. That's why you can try so hard and still feel stuck. That's why you can do all the right things and wonder why nothing's shifting. Because your mind might be trying to sprint ahead, but your body is still standing in the old frequency, waving its flag of fear and self-protection. And the universe faithfully, lovingly mirrors that signal back to you, not as punishment, but as an invitation to meet yourself with more truth, more tenderness, more permission to feel what you're actually feeling without judgment. You see, your frequency isn't just about what you think. It's the sum total of your emotional state, your cellular memory, your unconscious beliefs, your patterns of safety and survival. It's the quiet hum of your nervous system. It's the echo of unspoken grief. It's the tone of your trust or your tension. And you don't shift that frequency by pushing harder. You shift it by softening, by listening, by creating enough stillness to feel where you're actually vibrating from. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the energy even before anyone spoke? That's frequency. Have you ever met someone who smiled, but whose smile didn't quite land because their body was saying something else entirely? That's frequency. It's not about what's performed, it's about what's real. And when you start tuning into your own inner signal, not to criticize it, but to gently become aware of it, you begin to reclaim something powerful. You realize you don't need to fix yourself. You just need to befriend yourself. Because here's the sacred paradox. The moment you stop trying to convince the universe that you're ready, and instead start aligning your being with that readiness, everything changes. Not through effort, but through resonance. You don't attract peace by forcing positivity. You attract peace when your body remembers what peace feels like and begins to trust that it's safe to live there. You don't call in abundance by reciting words while your gut tightens in fear. You call it in when your nervous system learns that enoughness is your natural state. And how do you teach your body that? By slowing down, by noticing when you're pretending, by breathing when you want to run, by choosing to sit with discomfort not to fix it, but to witness it with love. Because the moment you stop trying to perform for the universe, and instead allow yourself to be seen fully, vulnerably, imperfectly, that's when your signal starts to shift. That's when the field begins responding to the truth of who you are, not the version you've been rehearsing. And the truth of you, it's not broken. It's not behind. It's just been wrapped in old vibrations, inherited fears, conditioned beliefs. But beneath all of that, there is a steady, clear, coherent frequency. And it sounds like freedom. So today, if your words and your body are telling two different stories, pause, breathe, get quiet enough to hear the one beneath the noise. That's the signal that changes everything. Not what you say, not what you want, but what you're brave enough to feel and willing to become. 3. The portal opens when you let go of the need to control. There's a certain kind of exhaustion that comes from trying too hard. Not the tiredness of physical labor, but the weariness of the soul. Of constantly trying to make life bend to your will. Of thinking, if I just do this right, say the right words, follow the right steps, fix every flaw, then finally, things will shift. I know that kind of effort. I lived in it for years, holding so tightly to outcomes that I forgot how to breathe, trying to force a breakthrough, as if the universe needed me to push harder before it could say yes. But here's the quiet truth I discovered. Every time I tried to make it happen, I was unconsciously affirming that I didn't yet believe it could happen without my control. I was sending the message to the field, I don't trust this unfolding. I don't trust this timing. I don't trust that I'm already enough, so I have to earn what should be mine by design. And life, being the mirror that it is, responded in kind. It kept reflecting back to me, not the desire, but the doubt behind the desire. Not the vision, but the tension I wrapped around it. You see, we often think we're creating from clarity, but so much of our striving is really fear dressed up in spiritual language. Fear that we'll be left behind. Fear that if we stop controlling, everything will fall apart. Fear that if we surrender, nothing will come. But surrender isn't passive, and it certainly isn't giving up. Surrender is a return to alignment. It's when you finally allow what's always been trying to reach you to find you. It's like trying to catch your own reflection in the water. The more you splash and stir, the more the image gets distorted. But the moment you become still, utterly still, clarity returns. That's how the portal opens. Not with noise, but with stillness. Not through effort, but through presence. Because when you let go of control, you're not falling into chaos. You're falling into rhythm, into the intelligence that's been breathing you since the day you were born, into the same field that knows how to turn a seed into a forest and a thought into form. When you relax the grip, when you stop tightening around the outcome, you make space. And in that space, life rushes in, not because you forced it, but because you finally allowed it. There's a moment, maybe you've felt it, when something within you exhales. When you stop fighting with the current and, instead, let it carry you. Not away from your dreams, but toward the version of them you couldn't have imagined with your limited map. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. There's a difference between intention and insistence. Intention says, I'm open. Insistence says, I must. And the moment we switch from openness to insistence, we move out of flow and into friction. You are not here to chase alignment. You're here to remember that alignment is what happens when you return to your natural state, not performing, not proving, just present. And I know the mind doesn't like this. It wants plans and guarantees and timelines. It wants to know what step comes next, and how long it will take, and whether it's working yet. But the soul knows something different. The soul speaks in surrendered breath, in quiet knowing, in gentle nudges that whisper, let go a little more, trust a little deeper, and watch what unfolds. So if you've been holding tightly, if you've been clenching your dreams in a fist of control, this is your invitation to loosen, to breathe, to soften into what already wants to be born through you. You don't need to micromanage the divine. You only need to become available, because the life you're trying to create from force is already waiting for you in the frequency of trust. The love you're trying to earn already exists in the field of your own, allowing, and the version of you you're trying to become is already present. Behind the tension, beneath the striving, just waiting for you to say, I don't need to control this anymore. I trust what's unfolding through me. And in that moment, the portal doesn't just open, you become it. 4. Every person you meet is a vibrational mirror. There's a quiet truth that life will keep whispering to us, again and again, until we're ready to hear it. The people who trigger us are not our enemies. They are our mirrors. I didn't understand this at first. For years, I thought healing meant avoiding pain, surrounding myself only with people who agreed with me, validated me, made me feel good. But the deeper I walked into this journey, the more I saw that the real teachers are often the ones who don't look like teachers at all. They're the ones who rattle your peace, the ones whose words sting, whose presence unsettles something deep inside you, the ones who say or do something that opens an old wound you thought had long since healed. And in those moments, the temptation is strong to blame, to push away, to label them as toxic or wrong, to tell ourselves we've simply outgrown them or that they just don't match our energy. But what if, just for a breath, we got still enough to ask, what part of me is this person reflecting back to me? What unhealed place in me is being revealed through this moment? Because what if their sharpness is touching a part of us that still believes we're not enough? What if their silence echoes a childhood memory of being ignored or unseen? What if their success awakens a forgotten ache? Not because we resent them, but because we've been denying our own light for far too long. You see, life is kind, even when it doesn't look that way. It doesn't just hand us the experiences we want. It gives us the ones we need, the ones that show us the parts of ourselves we've pushed into shadow, the parts we've exiled, judged, or tried to outgrow before they were truly healed. And it does this through people who walk into our lives not by accident, but by resonance, people whose vibration activates something hidden in our own field, not to punish us, but to help us see, because you can't transform what you refuse to look at. And nothing helps us see ourselves more clearly than a human mirror. Sometimes the mirror is kind, gentle, affirming. It shows us our growth, our light, our readiness to receive. And sometimes the mirror is harsh, rough, confrontational. It shows us the wounds still bleeding beneath our smiles, the stories we still carry about our worth, the fear that's still running quietly behind our choices. But either way, it's still a mirror, still a gift. It doesn't mean you need to keep every person close. Not everyone is meant to stay, but everyone has something to reveal. And when you learn to receive the reflection without immediately defending against it, you begin to see people not as problems, but as portals. A rude comment becomes a mirror, showing you where you still feel the need to defend your value. A cold rejection becomes a mirror, reflecting the part of you that's still waiting for external permission to feel worthy. Even the people you envy become mirrors, inviting you to remember the version of yourself you've been hiding or withholding. The more compassion you bring to these reflections, the softer life becomes, not because people change, but because you're no longer at war with what they awaken in you. This is where true healing lives, not in escaping discomfort, but in meeting it with enough presence to understand what it came to teach. So the next time someone triggers you, before you react, before you retreat, before you rush to explain or defend, pause. Ask gently, what in me is being shown right now? What if this person isn't here to hurt me, but to help me remember something I forgot? And maybe, just maybe, you'll feel something shift. Not because they changed, but because you chose to see instead of blame, to grow instead of guard, to alchemize the reflection into awakening. This is the quiet revolution of consciousness. One triggered moment at a time, one softened reaction at a time, one mirror met with love until there is nothing left to fear in the reflection. 5. You don't need to achieve anything more to deserve the portal. There's a story many of us inherited without ever questioning it. A quiet, persistent story that says, you're not quite there yet. You still have work to do. When you're more spiritual, more healed, more confident, then you'll be ready. It hides beneath our self-help routines, our constant striving, even our well-meaning growth. And it sounds so convincing, doesn't it? Like responsibility, like humility. But really, it's just another layer of delay. Another subtle way the mind convinces us that our worth is somewhere out there on the other side of more effort, more change, more improvement. But awakening doesn't wait for perfection. It doesn't need your resume. It doesn't require credentials. Awakening only asks for one thing, that you stop identifying with the voice that tells you you're not enough. You see, the part of you that's already worthy, the part of you that has always been whole, doesn't need to become anything. It only needs to be remembered. You don't have to climb your way into alignment. You don't have to chase the light. The light is not something you create. It's what's left when you stop covering it up. And I know that voice in your head, the one that questions, critique, compares, the one that tells you to try harder or be better before you dare to step forward. That voice isn't evil. It was built for protection. It learned to measure and calculate and manage disappointment. It learned to keep you safe by keeping you small. But you don't have to keep believing it. And you certainly don't have to keep obeying it. Because that voice isn't you. It's a recording, an echo of old experiences, old fears, old conditioning. And the more you treat it as the truth, the more you dim what's already shining through you. So many people ask, how do I become more aligned? How do I reach the next level? How do I become worthy of the life I desire? But what if the real question is, what part of me still believes I'm not already enough? Because the truth is, the portal, the shift, the transformation, the life you've been longing for is not something you earn. It's something you allow. It opens the moment you stop postponing your belonging. The moment you realize you're not here to prove yourself, you're here to be yourself. Not a perfect version, not a polished, always positive version. Just the version that's honest enough to say, I'm done hiding. And that's when the energy starts to move. That's when the quantum field begins to respond. Not to your effort, but to your permission. Because you've always been carrying the light. It's been tucked beneath layers of self-doubt, people-pleasing, survival strategies. But it's never been absent. And it doesn't need to be improved. It only needs to be revealed. Imagine a window, covered in years of dust and grime. The sunlight has always been shining. It's not waiting to shine when the window gets cleaned. The cleaning simply allows what's already there to come through. That's your job. Not to manufacture worth, but to make space for it to be seen. And that space gets created every time you stop trying to fix what was never broken. Every time you soften instead of strive. Every time you whisper to the child within you, you don't have to be more than you are to be loved right now. This is the frequency of truth. And the field responds to truth. Not the curated performance. Not the spiritual mask. Just the raw, steady truth of your being already enough. Already radiant, already ready. So if you're waiting for a sign that says, you're allowed to begin now, let this be it. Let this moment be the one where you stop postponing your permission to step through the portal. You don't need more credentials. You don't need more healing. You don't need more time. You just need to stop believing the voice that told you you did. Because the version of you that's already aligned with peace, with clarity, with purpose, they're not far away. They're just beneath the layer of self-doubt you no longer need to carry. And maybe, just maybe, you're not becoming anything at all. You're simply becoming available for the truth that's always been waiting to be lived through you. 6. The portal is a frequency, not a location. We grow up believing that change is something we must go out and find. That transformation lives in a place out there, in a new job, a different relationship, a better city, a more enlightened community. And without realizing it, we start chasing it. One workshop to the next, one meditation app, one teacher, one healing session to another, all with the quiet hope that somewhere, just beyond the horizon, is the doorway that will finally let us in. But what if the portal isn't a destination at all? What if it's not a place you arrive at, but a frequency you begin to emit? You see, the shift doesn't happen because you've gone far enough. It happens because you've gone deep enough, deep into the stillness where all seeking dissolves, deep into the present moment, where truth doesn't need to be found, it just needs to be felt. The portal isn't hiding in the future. It's humming right here, now. Not in words, not in promises, but in the vibration you are holding in this very breath. That's what no one tells us. That reality isn't just something we step into. It's something we tune into. And the tuning happens inside. When you shift your internal state to match the frequency of love, of peace, of unity, you don't have to go find the new world. It reveals itself right where you are. It's like adjusting the dial on an old radio. The station was always broadcasting, but until you tuned to that exact frequency, you couldn't hear the music. In the same way, the version of your life that feels aligned, whole, connected, it's not in the distant future. It's broadcasting now. It's already present in the quantum field, waiting for you to resonate with it deeply enough that it becomes visible. That's how the shift happens. Not because the world outside suddenly changes, but because you stop vibrating from separation and start vibrating from remembrance. Remembrance that you are not apart from life, you are an extension of it. You are not cut off from peace. You are the one choosing whether or not to let it move through you. And no, it's not always easy, especially when life feels chaotic, or heavy, or uncertain. Especially when your nervous system has been conditioned by years of survival to stay alert, to brace, to guard. But the invitation is always here, not to force yourself into joy, but to gently return to coherence, to find the places within you that are already still, already soft, already in tune with the frequency of truth. Because peace is not passive, it's a powerful current. And when you start to live from that frequency, not just visit it in moments of silence, but embody it in your daily life, everything begins to reorganize around you. You begin to notice different people, different opportunities, not because they suddenly appeared, but because you're now attuned to what was previously outside your awareness. It's not magic, it's physics. Quantum physics tells us that every possibility exists simultaneously in the field. And the version you experience, the reality you call yours, is the one that matches your dominant frequency. So when you tune into fear, you see a fearful world. When you tune into scarcity, you see lack everywhere you look. When you tune into separation, you feel alone, even in a crowded room. But when you tune into unity, into the soft rhythm of being rather than doing, into the gentle trust that you are held by something greater, the portal opens right here. No need to move, no need to arrive, just the willingness to align. That's the difference between searching for change and becoming the change. You are not waiting to be transported to a better life. You are learning how to broadcast the vibration that allows it to emerge. And maybe that's the miracle, that the doorway isn't over the next hill. It's right here, in the next breath, in the next softened thought, in the next choice to tune back into the frequency that knows you were never separate, never behind, never broken. So the question isn't, how do I get there? It's, am I willing to embody the frequency of where I want to be right now? Because when you do, you'll find the portal was never closed. It was only waiting for your return to the vibration of home. 7. Awakening isn't about escaping the darkness. It's about seeing it through a different light. There's a misunderstanding in the world of self-growth and spirituality, one that whispers, you need to get rid of your darkness to be free. We're taught to seek the light, to raise our vibration, to stay positive. And on the surface, that sounds beautiful. But underneath it often lives a quiet kind of shame, a pressure to eliminate the parts of ourselves that still hurt, a subtle belief that we can only be worthy of peace or presence once we've cleansed every shadow. But real awakening is not about becoming spotless. It's about becoming honest. You don't awaken by cutting away your pain. You awaken by turning toward it softly, gently, bravely, not to fix it, but to understand it, to hold it like a child that's been waiting to be seen. You don't need to exile the parts of you that still tremble. You only need to bring them into the light of your presence. Because light doesn't fight darkness. It doesn't argue. It doesn't try to convince. It simply shows up, and the moment it arrives, darkness dissolves. Not because it was bad, but because it no longer needs to hide. That's what your awareness does. It heals by seeing. It transforms by staying. Not by pushing parts of you away, but by saying, even here, even this, is welcome. We've been taught that awakening is a clean ascent, but often, it's more like a descent, a soft falling into the places within us we've avoided. The tender grief, the quiet anger, the fear that keeps whispering, don't look here. It's not safe, but it is safe. Now, it is. Because the part of you who once had to hide that was survival, but the part of you reading this now has grown strong enough to return, strong enough to sit with discomfort, strong enough to feel the ache without becoming it, strong enough to breathe in places where you used to hold your breath. This is the gentle work of real transformation. Not erasing the shadow, but reclaiming the light that's been trapped inside it. Because behind every wound is wisdom. Behind every trigger is a truth. And behind every breakdown is an invitation back to wholeness. You don't have to run anymore. You don't have to pretend you're fine. You don't have to paint over your sadness with fake gratitude. Sometimes awakening looks like crying on the floor. Not because you're broken, but because you're finally safe enough to feel what you couldn't before. Sometimes it looks like sitting in silence with the parts of yourself that used to scare you, and whispering, "I see you now. I'm not going anywhere." That's what presence does. It heals, not by fixing, but by being with. You don't awaken by rising above your humanity. You awaken by falling deeper into it, not as a burden, but as a doorway, a sacred path back to your heart. And the beautiful irony is this: the more you embrace what you once rejected, the more space you make for joy. Real joy. Not the performative kind, but the kind that rises quietly after a long exhale. When the fight inside you finally softens, that's what the light really is. Not perfection, not constant positivity, but presence that refuses to abandon you, no matter how messy or complex the moment feels. So if you find yourself walking through your own darkness, don't rush to the exit. Don't demand it be different. Just be there. Bring a candle of awareness. Bring the warmth of compassion. Bring the quiet courage of someone who knows that nothing inside you is unworthy of love. And when you do, you'll see it. The darkness isn't your enemy. It's your oldest invitation. Not to fight harder, but to come home. 8. You are consciousness. Not the identity you've been carrying. There comes a moment, usually after we've been cracked open by life, when we begin to ask a different kind of question. Not, "What should I do with my life?" Not, "Who do I need to become to be loved?" But something softer, something deeper. Who am I when I stop performing? For most of us, we've spent decades answering that question with labels. I'm a mother. I'm a teacher. I'm a survivor. I'm a failure. I'm an achiever. I'm broken. I'm successful. All stories, some empowering, some painful, but all still stories. And while stories can guide us, shape us, even inspire us, they are not who we are. Because who you truly are is not your past, not your pain, not your career, not your trauma, not even your personality. You are the one who's been quietly watching all of it unfold. You are the awareness behind the thoughts, the stillness behind the chaos, the presence that was there before your name, and will still be there when the name fades. You are not the waves. You are the ocean that holds them, not the storm, but the sky that allows it to pass. And when you start to live from that place, not just as a concept, but as a felt experience, life begins to shift in the most unexpected way. Because now, challenges don't define you. They reflect you. They show you where you're still hooked, still attached, still mistaking the temporary for the eternal. Your worth stops swinging like a pendulum based on praise or rejection. Because you no longer look to the world to mirror your value. You look to the quiet center inside you that has never once wavered. And the more you rest there, the more clearly you see that your emotions are not you. They are weather passing through the sky of your awareness. You see that your thoughts are not you. They are echoes, some inherited, some habitual, none of them permanent. You see that your identity, the one you've been defending and curating for so long, is simply a costume you've worn to walk through the world. And you begin to loosen your grip, not because you don't care, but because you realize you don't need to cling anymore. You can still play the roles. You can still be the parent, the artist, the leader, the friend, but now you do it from a different center. You don't lose yourself in the doing. You remain rooted in the being. And from that place, life becomes less about control and more about communion. You begin to witness life as a mirror, reflecting back the frequency you're living from. If you carry fear, the world seems threatening. If you carry peace, the world softens around you. If you carry judgment, you find fault in every face. If you carry compassion, you start to recognize yourself in everyone. Because the world is not happening to you, it's responding through you. That's why it's not enough to change your outer life if you're still identified with the inner noise. True freedom doesn't come from rearranging your circumstances. It comes from remembering that you are not bound by them. And this remembering is not about transcending the human experience. It's about being fully in it, but from a place of peace. Imagine standing in the middle of a crowded train station. There's noise, movement, schedules, people rushing, but inside you, stillness. Because you're not lost in the motion. You are the observer, present, grounded, aware. That's what it means to live as consciousness. Not separate from life, but no longer entangled in every passing thought or fleeting emotion. You become less reactive, more responsive, less anxious, more anchored, less identified with form, more in love with essence. And people feel it, not because you say wise things, but because your presence speaks louder than your words. You become a space where others can breathe deeper, not because you fix them, but because your energy reminds them of something they, too, forgot. That they are not their mistakes, not their titles, not their masks. They, too, are consciousness waiting to be remembered. So if you've been clinging tightly to who you think you need to be, it's okay to let go. Not to lose yourself, but to come home to the one who's never left, the one who's been watching patiently through every chapter of your becoming. Still, loving, and endlessly free. 9. Life isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. There's a moment in every awakening journey, quiet, humbling, often arrived at through tears, when a person stops asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and starts asking, "What is this waking up in me?" It's a moment of power, not the kind that dominates or forces, but the kind that softens, that sees, that stays. Because until then, it's easy to feel like life is something that happens to us. We're taught to believe that we are at the mercy of circumstances, that we're victims of fate, luck, or other people's choices. So when something painful happens, the mind rushes in with blame or defense. They hurt me. Life betrayed me. The universe is testing me again. But underneath that narrative is an invitation to shift from reaction to revelation, to recognize that every challenge is not a punishment, but a portal into something deeper in you that's been waiting to be seen, to be felt, to be freed. I used to think pain was a detour, that if life hurt, it meant I had made a wrong turn somewhere. But now I see, pain is often the exact signal that you're brushing up against an old identity that's ready to dissolve. Because nothing reveals your beliefs like a breakdown. Nothing exposes the stories you live by like a closed door. And nothing expands your awareness quite like the moments you swore you'd never survive, but did. You're not broken because you've struggled. You're not behind because things didn't go as planned. You're not weak because you still have days where you doubt or grieve. What if those moments were never here to stop you? What if they were here to shape you? Not shape you into someone else, but into the version of you who can finally live without the armor, without the performance, without the belief that life is something you must brace yourself against. You see, life doesn't hand you experiences at random. It responds to the energy you hold, not as a reward or punishment, but as a mirror. And sometimes, that mirror shows you what you've outgrown. Sometimes, it shows you where you've abandoned yourself. And sometimes, most beautifully, It shows you where you're finally ready to love what you once rejected. So instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What part of me is being invited to evolve right now? What truth is trying to surface through this discomfort?" When you do, you step out of victimhood and into participation. You become a conscious collaborator in your own unfolding. You stop waiting for life to change before you feel peace, and start shifting your own frequency until peace becomes your new reality. You realize, I don't have to fight with what's here. I can work with it. I can meet it. I can let it shape me into someone even more real. This is what it means to let life happen through you. It's not about control. It's about presence. It's about letting every experience, joyful or painful, become a vehicle for deeper knowing, deeper clarity, deeper love. Even your failures, they're not evidence that you're off track. They're often signs that you've outgrown the path you were on, that something truer is ready to emerge. Even your heartbreaks, they're not proof that love is dangerous. They're mirrors showing you where you're ready to receive love without the old walls. Even your fears, they're not blocks. They're thresholds. Thresholds between who you've been and who you're becoming. So let life move through you. Let the grief wash through. Let the joy rise up. Let the unknown open you rather than close you. And when things feel hard because they will ask not for escape, but for vision, ask not, "When will this end?" but "What is this asking me to remember about myself?" Because once you start living that way, once you meet every moment as a messenger, you stop fearing life, and you start walking with it. You begin to see that nothing was ever wasted, that even the pain had purpose, that you were never a victim, only a vessel through which life was always trying to awaken something sacred. And in that knowing, you become free. Not because life stopped being difficult, but because it stopped being something that was happening to you. It became something you could hold, breathe with, and ultimately grow through. Conclusion: you don't need to go far. You don't need a new title. You don't need more credentials, and more proof, or more signs to confirm that you're ready. You just need to pause long enough to remember what has always been quietly true beneath the noise of your becoming, that you are not separate from the life you've been trying to reach. You are life itself, unfolding, breathing, becoming aware of itself through your eyes, your breath, your heartbeat. You are not a seeker standing at the edge of a closed door. You are the doorway. You are the portal. And each moment you choose presence over panic, each time you breathe instead of brace, each time you soften instead of strive, you step through that portal again. Not towards something new, but towards something ancient inside you, finally allowed to be known. You are the observer. And that means you hold the power not to control reality, but to shape it by how deeply you choose to be with it. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about returning to the you that was never lost, never too late, never less than whole. So if your mind still wonders, "Am I ready?" let your heart answer with something quieter, more honest, more real. Because readiness isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't scream through the ego. It arrives as stillness, as the soft moment when your soul stops waiting for permission and simply begins to say yes. Yes to this version of yourself. Yes to this breath. Yes to this now. Because that's all life is ever asking of you: to participate, to remember, to allow. You are not here to play small. You didn't come to Earth to tiptoe through someone else's version of safety. You didn't incarnate just to survive your days and call it a life. You came here to embody something more, to walk with the kind of quiet knowing that says, "I am not my limitations. I am the one who sees beyond them." And if there's one thing you carry with you after this, let it be this: you weren't born for a small life. You were born to remember that limitation is an illusion, and awakening is real. The portal isn't somewhere out there. It's not behind the next success. It's not waiting in some perfect version of your future self. It's here, now, inside the breath you're taking. And the only thing it's waiting for is your willingness to walk through it. So don't rush. Don't perform. Don't wait for clarity to come wrapped in certainty. Instead, just feel, be still, and step. Because the moment you stop postponing your presence, you stop postponing your power. And the life that once felt distant, it begins to shape itself around you. Not because you chased it, but because you became the version of you that could finally hold it. So if your eyes are still here, if your heart is still soft, if something in you is still listening, then know this: the portal is open, the invitation has been sent, and you are the one who gets to decide, will I keep waiting, or will I remember? Because the moment you remember, everything begins to align, not around what you've done, but around who you're willing to be now.